Welcome back to another edition of the RockCast, a podcast made by Rockhurst University students for Rockhurst University students. I'm the question asker guy, Chad Schnarr, and welcome to our first-time listeners. If you're a student, alum, faculty, or staff, or a prospective student, hopefully you get something out of this. If you ever have questions, send us a DM on Instagram at Rockhurst University, all one word. Finally, be sure to rate and review us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and of course, we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/RockHurstHawk. But here we go. With episode number 5, we have finally hit the final month of 2020. It's taken us 3 years to get here, but we're here. And we're going to talk about the year in review, kind of predictions for 2021, kind of a true or false with some predictions there. And we'll get to one of the topics that was submitted, spring break. And that will lead us into some other topics. But first, let's have everyone introduce themselves. 2 participants this week. We might get some stuff from America and from Jarrett after the fact that we may put in here, but for now, let's start with you, Brianna. How's life going?
Life is going really well. My name is Brianna. I'm a sophomore at Rockhurst, and I'm majoring in physics of medicine. And so far, things are going pretty well.
Good. And Vince?
My name is Vince Rusketta. I am a senior nursing major here at Rockhurst. I am a caffeine connoisseur. Normally I'm the coffee guy on the podcast, but Red Bull made it in. Red Bull, please sponsor us. But yeah, life's doing great. Passed one of my nursing exams this morning, so I'm riding the wave, baby.
Do you get that sense of just relief after that? After you find that out and it's over? And
because this one actually gave you your score right at the end of the test. So.
Oh, nice. Still living in campus housing? How
Yeah.
long are you there for?
What was that?
How long are you there for? Do you get to go home or?
I'm planning to go back home the day after my last final, which will be next Thursday. I only live about 45 minutes from Rockhurst, which is close to where my off-campus house is. So going home isn't really like a big of a deal for me since I'm pretty much going back in the city metropolitan area.
Gotcha. And Bree, you are at home.
Yes, I'm at home. Feels nice to be back at home. I know I have like this map behind me. It's like a scratch off map, and it's pretty sad that I can't scratch off any new countries. But one day this is all over, maybe my map will be more filled, so we'll see.
Now, when you guys go home, is it different every time? Like because you've been away for a long time and maybe the dynamic with your parents or whoever you're living with at home, does that change? Does it get more difficult? Is it more appreciated? What's it like going home from college?
Yeah, I would definitely say I'm a lot even more appreciative. I try to limit travel as much as possible. So this is my first time going home since I came in August. So it's definitely been an adjustment, but I'm glad to be back. It is kind of hard having to focus on finals while you're in a home setting. So that's something that I kind of have to adjust to, but things are going pretty well.
Good. Vince, any issues going home or all good stuff?
No, it's good stuff, really. I mean, I only do live 45 minutes away from, or my parents are, that's a weird adjustment. all the new students coming to college in the next few years, that's going to be one of the weirdest dynamics that first time you come back from college, because you're like, okay, you spent 6-9 months being super independent, you do everything, and then you come back home, you're like, all right, mom, dad, what's the power structure now? Like, is it different? Is it the same? But for me, nah, it's all good. I kind of have this dynamic with my parents now where it's like it's not really like a college relationship, it's kind of more like a more adult relationship with my parents. It's more just like, I'm here to visit, not here to live here. That's kind of where we're at.
Gotcha. That brings back memories. Yeah, after my freshman year, and I only got home like once freshman year, because I was 12 hours away. And that summer, I lasted about 4 weeks, and my dad kicked me out just because of the power struggle. Like, oh yeah, well, I'll do this. It's like, just go, just get out. So, yep.
Wow.
Go from into full independence back home, and your parents, you're still kind of young, you're only 18, 19, and like I know a lot of people still have kind of structure, but then like you spent a year without it.
Right.
So that first time back.
Yeah. I'm on the other side now. My daughter's home from college, and I'm just gonna give her space and try not to intrude. But you fall back into it sometime. Like, hey, put a coaster under that cup or whatever. At any rate, we're not here to talk about that. Let's get into what this year has been. So I set up a scene here for us, and the scene is 2030. Okay, you guys are around 30 years old. You're sitting in a cafe in Brookside, near Rockhurst. You're talking with some fellow alumni, and a college student is your server. And she comes over and hears you guys talking about 2020. She says, I was in second grade in 2020. I don't remember much. So what happened? Where do you start? Like, what would you actually start with when you're trying to describe 2020 to someone?
Well, first off, we didn't have any toilet paper for like a month because everyone decided to buy it all. That'll be one of the first things for sure. My grandma, she still works at Walmart as one of those elderly greeters because she's just a super social person. And I remember her, she gave me a call. She's like, Vince, why is everybody buying a bunch of toilet paper right now? And I'm like, wait, what? And this was like probably like the night before like it blew up all over social media about like people resource hoarding and getting all this stuff. And I just remember that was the biggest thing. I'm like, guys, I thought this little coronavirus thing was just like, oh, that's over back in Asia. Like, that's not our problem. It's not that big of a deal right now. Why are we all freaking out like it's the apocalypse? And then, 8 months later, we're here. So, yeah.
Yeah, like that whole ordeal, I never really understood that. And even if you were like going to have to go into quarantine or whatever the case may be, I mean, there's also more important things other than toilet paper, food, water, like all those different things. And so like the fact that toilet paper was like the number one on people's minds, it still boggles me to this day.
My favorite, someone did like the math behind, like they figured out the average like use per time you go use toilet paper in the bathroom. They calculated the amount of time, one super max box of toilet paper or bundled toilet paper will last you. And like, he like took just one random picture off Twitter. This guy had like 3 of those gigantic packs in 2 different shopping carts. Like that amount of toilet paper would last you 4 years. Don't need all that right now.
Yeah, like that was just crazy. I know the first time we went to the grocery store during quarantine, we had 2 carts because my mom, she got food for my grandparents as well. So we were buying for 2 households. And so like, it was so awkward, like people looking at us in the store. And I just want like disclaimer, like this isn't all for us. 1 cart is for 1 household and another cart is for another household. So I feel like, especially in the stores, a lot of people were pretty judgy how much you would have in your cart. So it's just crazy how much that has evolved from the beginning of the year to now. It's crazy.
Anything else stick out for you? Like if they say, how hard was it during the pandemic? What would you say?
I'd say extremely hard. I mean, there's just kind of overwhelming. Generally in society, there's kind of like this feeling, of kind of powerlessness because just this virus is just super sneaky in nature, that and just like kind of a little bit of paranoia too, because you don't know, where you could pick it up. You don't know like if that random stall door you touched or the one time, you picked up something from the store that happened, someone who was COVID positive tested. There's a lot of powerlessness, I think, that a lot of people felt, and a lot of fear as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been very difficult. Even as far as like your lifestyle, you have to create a new normal for yourself, wearing masks, social distancing, like that's not anything that expect it to happen, yet that's our new reality. And trying to navigate that while also being a college student, it was very difficult. It was just, I don't know, I just think having to adapt to it all is probably what made it so hard. And not having that control over your life, as much control as you want to have, you just don't have it in a time like this. And then like also like I would probably tell the person that it was so much of it that we didn't know. And so that's what really made it difficult, not knowing how you can transmit it or if you can get it again. There's just so much uncertainty within it all. But yeah, but I also want to say that other than COVID-19, there has also been, I would say, either family households that's really strengthened or they've been very divided. And not only necessarily just with the election, but with COVID-19 in general, you have more children being with their parents and their guardians, and you're seeing more adults, you know, actually having the time to spend time with their children and whatnot. So I can kind of say it's like kind of like a good and like a bad thing at the same time, just kind of depending on that household dynamic.
Okay. Now, out of all the stuff that happened this year, if you could pick two things that stand out for you as the first things that pop into your head, and you know, obviously, aside from what you've already mentioned, just is it a feeling that you had, or is it the anxiety that might have been there, or like you said, families getting closer together, just that moment? Are there any moments that stick out for you for the year? If you could pick a couple of those.
If I had to pick, okay, I'll go with like one serious and one kind of funny one. One serious one, I remember back, it was over, I think it was back when I was back for Thanksgiving break when Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company, first announced that their vaccine was 90% effective. I think that, I remember watching that with my grandma, my dad in our living room, and like there was just this like crazy sense of like hope, I guess. We're like, wow, okay, we're finally getting somewhere. And that was only because like I just felt like we were just in this pit of COVID-19 for the whole year, and then we were just ready for finally any good news to actually make it to the headlines. I mean, let's be real here, news is normally like negative, but especially this year. That's kind of what we've been seeing. So just seeing that one little ray of like hope for the next few months here, that once those finish up their trials and start getting distributed, and start taking away at dropping the cases for the virus. And then I'm going to go with right now, actually, while we're recording this podcast, because on one screen I have you guys over here. On my other monitor, I have Wednesday afternoon football, Steelers versus Ravens.
I forgot that was on.
This is one of the weirdest experiences I've had in my entire life. Wednesday afternoon football. It doesn't seem real. And so that'll be my second one, just because I don't think there's ever been a Wednesday game, Wednesday afternoon. It's just really weird for me in a year of lots of weird things going on.
Nice.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's kind of like a low point and like a high point. So I would say like a low point would probably be that like I personally have had to quarantine because I was in close contact with someone who had COVID-19. And on campus, whether you have mask on or not, you still have to quarantine. So luckily I was able to test negative, but those 2 weeks were horrible. They were absolutely horrible. And the crazy thing about it was, you know, although I tested negative, which was good, you know, I did everything right. Like it wasn't like I went to a party or I did something crazy. Like I did everything right. It's just a matter of circumstance. And so like I would definitely say that like having to go through quarantine, especially on a college campus when you know your friends are like a few doors down or just like a building away, like it was very hard. And I would say like a high point throughout this year, I would say it was the last week of school. And after everyone leaves off campus, the only people that are left are like RAs, as well as a few students who still stay on campus. And so kind of like reflecting with my staff, like, wow, we made it like an entire semester. Like it was kind of surreal. I think some of us didn't think we would make it that long, but like we actually did. And it was like really just like a proud moment, like, wow, like we got through this. And so then being able to go home safe, knowing that I was negative, was also a great feeling. So yeah, it was definitely some of my key takeaways. And then watching boxing with my dad, it was very awkward because there was no one in the audience. It was just, I don't know, that was just like a funny memory. But yeah, it's just been a roller coaster ride for sure.
Very good. All right, so now let's look ahead to 2021. Actually, I have down here 2021, the year of the blank. But if you were to go 2020, the year of the blank, what would you put for 2020? And then we'll hit 2021.
I mean, it's easy because it's obvious, but I mean, it's 2020, year of the pandemic. This is going to go down in history as one of, like, you know, those turning points for like something crazy happened, like 1918 virus flu, 1920. That was a big one. It's going to be something like that, where it's a big landmark. Because it's affected every little part of society, and everyone in the world has had to deal with it. It's kind of hard not to say that that's what the year was about.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I would have to say, like, if I had to sum it up, I would probably name it like the year of the divide, because with COVID-19, it has divided a lot of perspectives as far as like whether children should go back to school, election, police brutality, especially throughout this year. Like, it has been so much divide. So I'll probably say the year of the divide for 2020.
Okay. So now let's think ahead to next year. Make a prediction on, let's say we're talking a year from now, 2021, the year of the what? The bounce back? The year of more of the same? Where would you put?
Is it bad that I don't want to jinx it? Like, I want it good, but at the same time, I'm like, oh.
Just knock on wood or something.
Right, knock on wood.
I think for 2021, I don't think you can come up with anything catchy for like year of the, but I think 2021 is going to be like, it's going to be like a setup year, because when starting the decade, you know, with 2020 and the coronavirus pandemic, our response and is going to like, I think how about to put it, given that the decade started off with such a life-changing thing like coronavirus, 2021 will kind of be like, okay, how are we going to try to come back, build from here? And what we come up with next year is going to set up how the world's going to be running for the next decade or more afterward, if that kind of makes sense. It's going to set things up, because it's going to be like, okay, we're dealt the coronavirus card in 2020. And 2021 is like, how can we, one, make our world better or respond to that? So it's going to define, you know, the policies that we're going to have for all sorts of parts of life. It's going to dictate kind of like how society feels, how our outlook on life, or literally everything going on with the world, economy, social issues, all of that. So 2021 will be the kind of benchmark, I say, for where we spring forward to the rest of the decade.
Okay, very good.
I would say it would be a year of growth, and be able to set like those policies and that foundation, so that the way we handled it this year, we won't have to have those problems in the future. So if we're dealt this card again, hopefully not, knock on wood, we'll know how to deal with it, and we'll know how to go about things. I definitely believe that, like, as far as like growth, we see like campus life changing, we're seeing the communities change, and so it'll be a lot of opportunities for growth, and I'm just very interested to see how everything plays out. But I don't know, part of me, I feel like January is going to kind of feel the same like December, but like after the inauguration, I feel like that's where we're going to start to see like we're going to have a clear vision of which way we're going to go. So I don't know, I'm very interested to see how that all plays out as well.
Okay. I've got some predictions here that I found on the interwebs, but any bold predictions for the new year, as specific as you want to make them? Now, I think growth and setting the foundation for maybe the next decade are absolutely great, and I hope true. But anything out there that, like, as specific as you want to be, what predictions do you have for 2021?
I hate to have everything related to COVID. I'm gonna think of a different one as well. But as pertains to COVID, as far as the vaccine, I feel like a bold prediction. I feel like there will be a vaccine. However, it won't be readily available to all of Americans until probably the following year. Because it makes me think about COVID tests and how they weren't readily available right in the beginning. But I feel like we're going to see the same thing with the vaccine. And I'm pretty sure they're going to be crazy expensive. So I would say we're probably going to have a vaccine, but it's not going to be readily available to everyone to make it go back to our thoughts on normal, per se.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be a little while to start manufacturing enough vaccines to go out to people. Something that kind of brings that up is, we kind of been discussing it in my healthcare ethics class that I'm in. It's like, how do you ethically distribute vaccines? And I think that's more interesting. Getting a vaccine is great, but I think the more interesting question is, like, how do we determine who gets it first? And that's probably gonna be the next, like, big thing with COVID. Like, okay, we did it, we got all the news, beforehand this year, like, okay, crazy virus, whatever. And now we have the vaccine. How do we distribute it? That's what's going to be the talk of the town, I feel like, especially those first few months, especially when the first few shipments are starting to roll out.
So I've got some predictions here, and we'll go with a true or false on these. And if you want to expand on it, please feel free. Okay, so here we go. And I got these off of, I think, Fortune magazine, their website. It came up first in the Google search, so I got to reward that SEO. Driverless cars are going to hit the road for good this year countrywide. They are some like Arizona and little places here and there, but it'll be commonplace by the end of the year to see driverless cars in most big cities. True or false?
False for 2021, true for by the end of the decade.
Okay.
We still have a bit more to go in terms of developing autos, but I definitely think by the end of the decade, I think they'll start doing more. Plus, the public needs some time to accept it as well.
There is always that.
By the end of the year, I would say false. Also, because I don't think that's where people's minds are right now, like as far as like level of importance. So I don't think it's going to be necessarily on the top of people's radar as far as like, I need to drive this car. Like, I don't think people are going to be thinking about that. So I would say false as well.
Okay. Now, if they are available, would you, okay, so say there is one that goes from Troost down to the plaza and can go all the way up to downtown to Power and Light. Would you do it? Would you get in a driverless car?
No. Yeah, very different. Vince is say like, yeah, and I'm like, no. I guess for me, I like having control over as much as I can in my life. And so it would just be so awkward. I personally wouldn't be able to do it. I'm kind of like the person where it's like, I need to see like millions of other people do it first before I can get comfortable doing it. Kind of same with the vaccine. I'm gonna wait till like a lot of people get it, and then we're gonna see what happens, and then maybe I'll get it as well. So for me, it's a no. I can't.
I would say yes. And farther down the line, I can definitely see myself buying an auto like for like normal everyday use as well, like for personal use to go anywhere. So it's one specific route, but like actually just drive me places. I wouldn't mind. I like driving, but not that much.
Gotcha. Okay. Flip phones come back in style to the point where they're affordable. And we've seen some of these that are like 2,000 that open up into like a big tablet. I think it's Samsung maybe. I don't know who does it off the top of my head, but a smaller, more affordable version of the old flip phone comes back. Yes or no? Or true or false? Sorry.
I'm pretty sure that one that you were referencing, people can get it, but it's technically only a beta version. It's not like the full-on phone quite yet. They're still trying to develop it, and I just don't think that phones have a have a spot in the current technology market anymore. They really don't. I get it. They're trying to integrate the touchscreen into it as well, but it just sounds like a money pit. And it sounds like it would break way too easy for the mass public to consume it. So I'm gonna have to go with a no on that one.
Okay.
I would say false. And I feel like it's kind of sad, but like a lot of people are like kind of like bandwagon. So unless the majority of people have the phone, they're not going to have any interest in the phone. Kind of like iPhones. A lot of people have it, therefore a lot of people want it. So I don't think flip phones is something that people will want next year. So, yeah.
Did you guys ever have flip phones?
I had flip. I think it was like in 4th grade. And then like in 5th grade, I had like a little slide one where you slide it up and you got like
Way back in the day.
Say that again, Vince.
I think it was called like the Razor or something like that. The one like
Motorola Razor. Yeah.
Pad where you can text on it. Kids nowadays would not, but
yeah. Did you ever have a BlackBerry?
Yeah, I had a BlackBerry.
Okay. What I miss about the flip phone, and if they could do this with an iPhone, I would like it. But just the act of like, nope, and you shut it, just that feeling of completion, like, no, and then put it in your pocket. I like the dramatic effect with that. But anyway, all right, next up. People will be less interested in politics in 2021. True or false?
false.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen. I think the interest is just growing and growing over time. Maybe it has a lot to do with our just generation, which is surprising because, like, you know, a lot of older people will say like, young people are lazy, you know, they don't pay attention. Da, da, da. However, like on the flip side of things, I'm seeing a lot more young people being active in politics or whatever the case may be. Especially with the climate now, I think the interest is going to continue to grow. And so it's just going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. But false. People will definitely still be interested in politics.
Definitely false. Definitely, like, it's technically normal for people's interest to go down right after an election because the it's finally resolved. But I think with what happened with our election here this year, also go to episode 3 and 4 and go listen to our comments on that. But I definitely think people will be a lot more invested because a lot of people got really, really invested in this last election. And so it's going to fire more people up. So to the point where they start caring more about their local and state politics as well, not just the big national election.
Will the media pay as much attention to politics as they have over the past few years?
It's kind of hard because sometimes, like, you see things or topics where they'll make it political even though it's not, but like the media or even just people around you would politicize it. So that's the only thing, because sometimes things are heavily talked about, but it's not even political, but like people think it is because of the way it's spoken on. I think the media will still keep up with it.
All right, so getting into some of the norms that have happened due to COVID, virtual doctor visits become the established norm for most visits. True or false?
Depends on the visit. Like if it's just like a well visit or like you just start having like little symptoms, I definitely think they'll be on the rise. I want that to happen because I used to float down to our hospital's ER where I work at, and I would admit people into the ER. And there were just some people who would come in like, you really should not be coming to the ER for a cough. Well, pre-COVID, obviously. But little things like that, you know, like you have a fever, here's some mild symptoms over here. Don't come burden the healthcare system more with that. And if you can get a virtual diagnosis or, you know, just talk to a doctor there, I think that would be great. That's just, you know, less, if you have people who are lower acuity, like treat them, you know, at a lower acuity, you know, don't come and burden the healthcare because that might be taking time away from someone who has a really high acuity condition or accident or whatever medical problem.
Yeah, I would definitely say like limiting that unneeded interaction. Yeah, I agree pretty much with everything that Vince said. So
And Vince, you are the resident healthcare expert here. I wonder if it'll depend on the doctor's office too. Like I called to get a COVID test. I called my doctor's office, said I needed a COVID test, and they said that we'll do a virtual appointment first on that. So I wonder if they'll take whatever it is and then say, yeah, we're going to make this virtual, and go from there. And maybe there's even a virtual, not necessarily ER, but another example. One of my kids was slicing cherry tomatoes and cut off part of her finger. And like we couldn't get it to stop bleeding after about 20 minutes. And we're on that line of, all right, do we take her in or do we not? Like, I wonder if we could call into an ER, a virtual ER, so to speak, and say, look at it, here's the info. Is this bad enough to come in? You know, maybe we pay $50 for that.
There's services that exist already that are kind of tailored to what you were kind of talking about there, Chad. I know HCA, the company who owns the hospital that I work for, has a line where it's basically ask a nurse, and it's like that, where like, okay, I'm not really sure what I should do right now, and then they can give you some professional medical advice on what to do next. So stuff like that already. But I think expanding that, because it's just a phone line, right? So I think like an actual like get your webcam up or just like FaceTime in or something like that. I think that's an area for growth. For those specific like offerings, I guess, from healthcare systems, and I think that's actually really beneficial because they would help, you know, lay medical people to help with their healthcare decisions. So I think that expanding that will be really good.
Okay. Vaccinations. Okay. The polls show that between 50 and 58% of people are for, or are saying they will take vaccines when they come out. So putting the Vegas over under here at 55.5%, is it over that or under that for how many Americans will go for the vaccine?
I personally think it will be over that. It's just a matter of establishing that trust with the system and its citizens. I definitely think it could be over that. It's just a matter of trust. And then as far as like people who may not, I know you also have to kind of take into account like whether you have a certain religion or like belief that like, you know, you just don't take vaccinations. I know that kind of can play like a significant role as well into people's this choosing whether or not to have a vaccine. But I would say over that percentage.
I take the over as well, but like just slightly, like 60, low 60s percentage, somewhere around there. Spread won't be too big, maybe like 3.5. But yeah, I definitely think the over. I think people are ready to be done with this pandemic and get that peace of mind that they haven't had since the start of the year because of it. I personally, if I have an opportunity to get it, I'm going to take it. And I think a lot of people kind of resonate with that. So.
Okay. Back to virtual a little bit. Most meetings in workplaces will take place over Zoom from now on. True or false?
True. True. It is, I'm not gonna lie, it is more efficient and like effective, like especially if you don't have to like leave the house or leave your room, whatever the case may be. It's definitely more efficient, and you don't have to necessarily, I don't know, it's just easier, just to say the least. It's just easier. So
I think if there's any good this pandemic has shown, one of them is it exploited all the inefficiencies, you know, in corporate America when it comes to all these random meetings and stuff like that.
Travel. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, a lot of people also realizing that like, okay, we're not maximizing our productivity with, you know, the full, you know, 9 to 5, 5-day work week as well. And so COVID's kind of poked some holes in, you know, how we think about what, you know, office life is like. And so definitely, I think to help with those to help increase those efficiencies, more meetings like this are going to be happening.
Okay. 3 more here. Face masks remain part of a daily routine through 2021. Even if they say that there's no mandate and the recommendation has been lifted, will face masks remain? And if so, when?
Okay. Now the second part does make a difference because, like, if there's a mandate that's lifted, I think it will still be divided like it is now. Like, we have a mandate, but not everybody wears masks. I think for me, it would kind of be weird going from wearing a mask every day to not wearing a mask. It would just be my level of comfort in public spaces. But I think that face masks will remain, especially when you get to like college campuses and like if there'll be concerts down the line, those heavily dense populations or like events, if you still have to wear a mask.
I definitely think they are still going to remain. I think what'll happen will kind of just turn into kind of like how people have been using face masks for years when walking around in highly populated Asian countries. Maybe one of those where like you're out and about in the city, like you'll wear them, stuff like that. That was already the norm for a lot of Asian cities, and so I think that would start becoming more of a norm here in America because, like, even in our most densely populated urban cores, no one really wore it until they were required to now.
Gotcha. Do you find I didn't have this in the notes here, but do you find watching TV shows or movies or whatever that were done pre-pandemic, when they're talking really close to one another, it really makes you uncomfortable because they don't have masks on? Like, they're just breathing right in each other's faces.
Yes, for me, it's like I know that this happened before COVID, but I was actually talking in my leadership class about this. It's just awkward. I don't know, like, especially like concerts and stuff. It's just weird. And even like I got like Snapchat, how it gives you like Snapchat memories, and it'll say like 2 years ago on today, I was at where did I go? A Drake and Migos concert, and it was kind of cringy because I was like, oh my gosh, so many people was around me. But this time it was like, man, like those were the days. But yeah, I cringe just a little bit.
Honestly, for me, like when it comes to like kind of that closeness, I miss it. Like a lot of that personal intimacy has been lost over the pandemic here. We kind of touched about it in previous episodes, I know, but like I just think like proximity is huge when it comes to, human connection, and that's just something that a lot of people, me especially, have been deficient on, throughout this pandemic because we literally can't be that close to one another. So honestly, kind of miss it. From my perspective.
Okay. 2 more. Ads will take over TikTok. True or false?
True.
Yes.
It's already kind of, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, when the TikTok higher ups start seeing that cash flow from all the ad revenue, they won't be able to resist it.
Yeah.
And then we get sick of it, and then we'll be on to the next thing.
Yeah. I wonder if it's going to be like kind of like Twitch, where they'll sponsor certain people. I don't know if you call them influencers or whatever, but the more popular ones start giving them sponsorships or wear this shirt that says Tide or whatever, if it's a home improvement thing or something. But okay. And then finally, is this the year of the zombie apocalypse? I'll hang up and listen.
Oh goodness, I sure hope not.
And this was an actual listing, actually first on a Nostradamus predicts page. So it was on the internet, so it must be.
Actually, you know what? Yeah, well, true, because it's going to happen next year. It's going to be like crazy side effect of the coronavirus vaccine turns into zombies. It's going to be World War Z all over again. So it's going to happen. That's the way it's going to be. Calling it right here.
All right. Prove it won't happen.
Yeah, no, God, please. Don't let it.
That's just going to be very interesting. Like, over time within the next few years, seeing like the psychological effects of COVID-19, whether you had it or like your family members have had it and whatnot, like just seeing like those long-term effects, that's going to be very interesting to look out for in the future.
Okay. Any predictions for the university that you would like to see in the fall season? We are in the fall, in winter and spring.
I mean, I'm not sure if I'd like to see it, but I just don't know if we're going to be coming back next year. I know we pulled a lot of strings and bells and whistles in order to make a fall semester happen on campus this semester. So I'm not sure if Rockhurst has the capacity to come back in the spring. I've been getting we've been getting like these text messages from the school, like asking like, oh, right, like how your experience, you know what. Bria, have you been getting those too?
Yeah, I get those too.
But yeah, basically like, you know, on a scale of like 1 to 3, you know, how satisfied are you with, you know, how the COVID policies have been, or online, would you prefer online or stay at home for this spring semester? So this has been going on since October, so they've been gauging to see where the students are standing, and I just don't know if we're going to have in-person spring semester next year.
I know there's a big meeting with one of the boards this week, so I wonder if they're gathering info for that too. For what it's worth, I haven't heard anything that has said we wouldn't be back, but precautions are going to be pretty strict. Are they too strict? We had that come in actually a week ago for a topic to talk about. Are precautions too strict, or are they the necessary things to keep us open?
It's actually interesting because I worked with Res Life to create a COVID-19 survey for people who have either been in isolation or quarantine, or like quarantine in place. And so we were able to get like students' feedback, and it's very mixed. Like I see like in some of the entries, some people think that it's way too strict, whereas other people think that the university made the necessary adjustments. I would say in the beginning, I would probably think that it's too strict, but looking back now, because we were able to make it an entire semester, I think they were just fine, because obviously there's some flaws in it, but overall, I think the university did a pretty good job because we actually were able to stay the entire semester, and not every university was able to do that. So
I'm a results-driven kind of guy, and given like the COVID numbers the school has, you know, they're keeping us up to date with, like they're great, and like were you saying, we made it through the semester, yes. For me personally, though, I have felt that the kind of culture around COVID-19 and the policies for the school have been too strict. Like Bria was saying, there's people who have supported and have not as well, pretty mixed with the school. But I just can't get behind like the culture of ratting people out and bringing up names and kind of pressuring students into giving one another up throughout the semester. That's not the Rockhurst University that I signed up for when I was a senior high school, not the one that I experienced when I was a freshman, about, you know, caring for one another and that sort of thing. So that's just kind of where I personally fall. In terms of like, they made the school like really great, like adding all the different social distancing stickers on the floor, adding a ton of like Purell dispensers around. Love that. Thermometers, love that. I just can't get on board with any institution that's wanting to have its members, which would be the students here for our part, ratting each other out for kind of anything, honestly. I just don't like the culture that kind of breeds.
that actually, I almost kind of forgot about that. Wasn't that like in an email that we got sent? I think it was after Halloween or something.
It was like kind of later portion of October. Yeah, it was when it was kind of at its biggest.
Yeah, and like that's where I would say I see a flaw. Especially people who get COVID, like whether it was after Labor Day or after Halloween, it's kind of like this stigma that you did something wrong, which is why you're in this predicament that you're in. And I feel like instead of jumping to the conclusion that, this student did this wrong, or they must have been at this party, they must have been over 10 people, whatever the case may be. I think it's important to at least hear the student out to get the entire story, because not everybody had to do something wrong to get COVID-19, So I definitely think that was like a flaw. And that's actually some of the things that I've been hearing around campus from different people, that they believe that just making that assumption that they did something wrong was not
right. And the reason why I feel so strongly about it is because I've actually had 2 friends personally who were put through the ringer by the school because someone had sent their name in through the COVID-19 form, and both of them weren't even doing anything on the night in question. And school didn't really believe them. They eventually cleared things up with evidence, but like 2 innocent people got, had to be put through all of that just because someone submitted a name. And I watched the emotional pitfalls from that with those 2, and they didn't deserve it. It wasn't really fair, and no student deserves to have to deal with all of that, especially if they didn't do anything. So it's kind of where I stand on it.
Not one of the topics for this week that was submitted on Instagram was spring break. So the thing about spring break this year is that there is no spring break this year, at least for a large amount of college students across the country, and including Rockhurst. To counter it, there's an extra week or so of winter break this year. What the goal is to minimize exposure by having people, when you're on campus, try to keep them on campus until the semester is over. So my question is, what was your reaction when you first heard there wasn't going to be a spring break? And then has that evaluation of it changed at all?
I would say for me, I knew it was going to happen. Just like with fall break, I knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of them making the announcement. But I do have my qualms about how it was done. So as far as it's nice to have an extra week, don't get me wrong. But me knowing that week was spring break, I don't know, I'm not very happy about it. And I feel like it doesn't equal out to the same thing, meaning that you're adding on a week to a break where, we're just working, we're chilling, we're at home, whatever the case may be, or with our friends. Whereas spring break, not only is it to have an actual break from school, but you're able to fully detach yourself. And so putting that week right after winter break, it doesn't really do anything. I feel like it doesn't really add any benefit, in my opinion. And then as far as my opinions about it now, I think there has been some talk about having mental health break days, where there's a random day each month where students won't have to go in-person classes, whatever the case may be. However, to my knowledge, if they were to do that, I think it's going to be randomized, so that it's not going to be on a Friday because they don't want to encourage 3-day weekends, but it will probably be in the middle of the week. And if that is the case, you won't know that much ahead of time because they don't want students to plan outings and whatever the case may be. So if we do have it, we're going to have them. It's just we're not going to really know exactly when they're going to come up. And then also, I've also been told that whenever we have snow days, whatever the case may be, it looks different with COVID-19 and everything, but they're still going to honor those snow days. So it'll actually be as if you don't have class. Now in the future, I don't think they're going to do that, but as of right now, that's what I've been told. It's just a matter of them confirming it. But yeah, they're still going to honor those snow days as our mental health break days. We'll see how that goes, or if that helps university and its students.
Well, I'm glad to hear that they're still going to honor snow days, because I thought after this year snow days are going to be dead.
I think
they are for public
year,
schools.
I know.
But they're never going to know what it's like to see your school's name pop up on the ticker on the local news station.
Those are the days.
For me, my experience with hearing about spring break being canceled was 2 accounts, so double sadness, because since my school schedule is tied with the College of Nursing, we don't follow Rockhurst's schedule to the letter. So Rockhurst dropped their email about it, And then all the nursing students like, well, maybe we'll still have ours. And like 2 days later, they dropped pretty much like word for word, like a copy and pasted email, the exact same thing. We're like, oh no. As a senior, it's just kind of disappointing. I mean, obviously, like not much you can do when you're in the pandemic, but just knowing that we're not gonna be able to take the classic, senior college spring break trip down to a beach or something, just won't happen. That's just another grievance in the very, very deep bucket of COVID-19. So
it seems like we have been stuck in that bucket of COVID-19, as Vince put it, forever. It's been since March. The year has been full of ups and downs, a lot of downs, but one of the ups was that we were able to get back on campus, and the majority of students at Rockhurst wanted to be back on campus. I think survey results said something like 97% of students said it was a priority to be together on campus. So we decided that through the RockCast, which is by Rockhurst students for Rockhurst students, as a means of sharing information from fellow students or to potential students, but also as a means of information to get to students. So we thought, could we get someone from the administration to talk about what went into getting the campus reopened for the fall semester, and then what goes into keeping everyone healthy throughout the year. So we brought on Matt Quick as a special guest. So without further ado, here's Matt Quick. We are pleased to be joined by Matt Quick, who is Dean of Students and VP of Student Development at Rockhurst. And Matt Quick has been at the forefront of the university's COVID precautions and safety measures, making sure that we all stay healthy on campus. Matt, first of all, welcome to the RockCast, and thanks so much for joining us.
It's really good to be with you, Chad. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. So all universities this year have been tasked with just monumental goals of can students have that on-campus experience this fall semester? The primary goal, obviously, is to stay healthy. And those processes have been well documented, and certainly at Rockhurst. The students have expressed their desire to be on campus. I think a survey was near unanimous, you mentioned earlier, with the students wanting to be on campus. So in order to do that and to keep everyone healthy, that involves a lot of difficult decisions that I certainly don't envy you guys for. Would you mind talking about kind of what goes into those processes that have to be put into place to make sure, A, everyone stays healthy, and B, that the students' wish to be on campus is respected, and we do all we can to make that possible?
Sure, I'd be happy to give you a few highlights of that, Chad. I'd say the first thing that jumps out to me is we needed to have a group of internal campus leaders that came together and coordinated a plan for Rockhurst. And that really started in March with full diligence. And I co-chair with Dr. Doug Dunham, the provost, the Pathway Planning Task Force, which makes up these leaders who have led us through this time of change and adjustment in response to the pandemic. We also knew that we could not do this ourselves, and it was important for us to connect with some external consultants that were experts in the field. And I would say the predominant ones that we've worked with, although there's been more than a handful, has included MRI Global. And MRI Global is actually just down the street from Rockhurst, but they are infectious disease specialists. So they've handled everything from Ebola to now COVID. And they helped us to put together the plan for Rockhurst in terms of the official reopening and on-ground status in the fall. And their guidance was tremendously helpful. The other group that we've worked closely with is the Kansas City Health Department. And we ran all of our plans by the Kansas City Health Department. and receive their feedback on them, really with the hopes that we were not missing any kind of key components, that we weren't over responding or under responding, that we were striking that right balance, and being responsible community members, recognizing that what happens at Rockhurst also has a ripple effect across our entire city and indeed our states. Dr. Dunham and I sit in on a weekly call with the Kansas City Health Department, even presently, along with other local colleges and universities. And I'd say that's probably our last resource that we've tapped into a lot, is really kind of what has been best practice that we've seen at other colleges and universities, and tried to extract those items that seem to fit Rockhurst the best.
Okay. Now, as students have been back on campus this fall, obviously some classes are online and hybrid and whatnot. There have been a couple instances where the university has had to step in order to stop a potential spread of COVID, as many universities do. I've had to do this year, obviously. Can you kind of talk about what goes into those difficult decisions of how do we keep this from spreading not only on campus, but throughout the city? Rockhurst is right in the middle, the heart of the city. What goes into that, and how difficult decisions those may be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think stepping back, one of the things that we needed to do was to be clear with students and our employees about what the expectations were in terms of conduct that happened on campus as well as off campus. And so we started conveying that information certainly as early as this past summer, and recognizing that many of these expectations are things that are really unfamiliar to us, especially during non-COVID times. So whether it's social distancing, mask wearing, limiting the numbers of people coming together, things like that. So first of all, we tried to communicate clearly. Then, I think it's incumbent upon us to follow through on what we said. And so we need to follow through in terms of providing resources. And we also need to follow through in terms of enforcement. So we did have a couple of incidents throughout the course of fall semester that particularly were alarming and of concern for us in terms of our community's well-being. That included some events that occurred just prior to the opening of our fall semester, and then again around the time of Halloween.
Okay. And if we're looking back on the results of what took place, was the university successful in keeping the students on campus as they wanted to be, and out of those incidents through quarantines, are you satisfied with the results that came out of that, with no super spreader events having happened?
Yeah, I mean, we're really grateful. We have thousands of people that are at Rockhurst between our students and employees, and we were able to keep our rates relatively low over the course of the semester. And that's not to say it wasn't hard work for a lot of people, including our first responders, our case managers, and a lot of difficult and courageous decisions that were made individually by our students and by our employees. And I hope that people hear our expressions of gratitude for the sacrifices that have been made that way. At the same time, when I look back on the interventions that we did, especially on 2 different occasions, that pre-fall opening and then around Halloween, first thing I'd say is I wanted to send those emails like the students wanted to to receive them. That was just not a happy time for me, and quite honestly, over those weekend periods and week-long periods, you know, there's been few times that I've worked as hard as I have. I'm grateful that because of the actions that we took, especially with that early fall episode, we found out about one event in particular. Approximately a third of those individuals ended up becoming COVID positive. And if we had not taken the action that we did at the time we did it, in terms of quarantining them, it could have been a super spreader event. And a matter of fact, the Kansas City Health Department labeled it as such. They viewed it as a super spreader that we were able to contain. So fast forward to Halloween, when we ended up reaching out again to students. I just looked at that email this morning, and the title of it was essentially "We Care About You All," and that was the foundation of our outreach and our action. And again, I think because of the quarantine efforts that had a large impact on a number of people, I think because of those sacrifices that were made by us as administrators and by the students that actually did the quarantining, we were able to head off a potential super spread that could have sent us home much earlier. So I'm grateful for that. The one thing about COVID is COVID can turn on a dime. So one day you can think things are just fine and rosy, and then the next day you can have a fairly significant outbreak. So we approach our work with the seriousness and the humility that it deserves.
Excellent. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for all you're doing to help keep us safe. And the RockCast is a podcast for Rockhurst students. So to the Rockhurst students out there, I know we were talking earlier, a lot of students are on the front lines of, providing food for folks. They need jobs, obviously, keeping the economy going, things like that. And they're certainly not immune from it, but they have been taking the precautions, and we appreciate all they do. So again, Matt, just want to say thanks, and have a great Christmas.
You do the same. Thanks, Chad.
We are coming up on winter break, and this is the last show before winter break. Any plans? Anything to get away from it a little bit?
For me, I don't have any plans. Like, now it's kind of like DIY, like with my family. So we're redoing our basement. So that's kind of like we're working on. So we're not really going anywhere. However, it's all based upon the climate in January, as far as like COVID-19, everything happening. But as of right now, my plan is to be in DC on the day of inauguration. So we'll just see how everything plays out with that. But as of right now, that's my plan.
Interesting.
That'll be really cool. Never seen a presidential inauguration in person. I don't think I've seen it on TV before. Props to you.
I just see like pictures from it on like social media, like the next day.
No, that'd be cool because it's historic. So I mean, you only get to every 4 years. So, starting the weekend after school ends, I'm going to Winter Park in Colorado, do a snowboarding trip with a buddy of mine. Nice. Socially distant sport, so able to stay away from people and hit the slope. So that'll be pretty fun. But other than that, it's going to be applying for jobs actually over break for me.
Cool. Very good. And then finally, the best part of the holidays is What?
Not having a list. Not having a list of things to do. Every day for school, it's always like, all right, what do I do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Like there's always something, a long list. You have to start crossing stuff on. I have to study for this, go buy groceries here, and then over break that all just stops. You own your time. The time is yours. So I just feel like it takes a lot of weight off your shoulders, and it's just like, it's what it is. It's break. You have a chance to relax and get away from it all. So that's what I'm really
Awesome.
For sure, you're able to have a more free spirit, which is something that I really like to have, but with the schedule, it makes it really hard. So I would definitely say that. And then like spending time with family, like I like cooking and eating. But Thanksgiving was lots of fun. So kind of being able to do those. I know every year my family, we do like a seafood New Year's. We kind of like try to have like a theme.
Ooh,
I'm very excited about that.
that sounds amazing.
Yes, I
cool.
All right. Well, those are two. Now I really want seafood. Well, I know where I'm going to go for dinner then. All right. Well, guys, thanks for jumping on today and for your work at the podcast this fall. And we'll be back next year, 2021. So for Brianna and Vince, this is Chad Schnarr. Have a happy holidays, everyone. Stay safe. Stay healthy.